this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
At Lowe's, get up to 35% off select major appliances. Plus, members get free delivery, install, and more when you spend $2,500 on select major appliances. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 2/25 while supplies last. Selection varies by location. Excludes Massachusetts, Maryland, Wisconsin, New Jersey, Florida. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. Visit Lowe's.com/terms for details. Subject to change.
Visit your nearby Lowe's on East 17th Avenue in Hutchinson.
You ever wonder how far an EV can take you on one charge? Well, most people drive about 40 miles a day, which means you can do all daily stuff no problem. Go to work, grab the kids at school, get the groceries, and still have enough charge to visit your in-laws in the next county. But they don't need to know that. And the best part, you won't have to buy gas at all. The way forward is electric. Explore EVs that fit your life at electricforall.org.
Every year, people make the same fitness goal, train harder. But most fail because recovery gets ignored, especially connective tissue that muscles depend on to grow. Frog Fuel was developed by Navy SEALs and perfected by a Stanford-trained scientist, delivering 15 grams of nanohydrolyzed collagen protein that digests in just 15 minutes. It's science-backed and ready to drink. No mixing, no sugar, no junk. This year, don't just train harder, recover smarter. Go to frogfuel.com. That's frogfuel.com. Stay unbreakable.
Body Bags with Joseph Scott Morgan. It's hard to believe. I think about it now. 1964. And 1964, wow, 62 years ago. It's hard to wrap my brain around. It's an odd thing, Tom. I teach kids now that, their birth year is, I don't know, I guess I've got kids now that are born, 2007, 8, 9. Time marches on. I know that seems rather obvious. But, the thing about cold cases and those individuals that have families that were marked by tragedy, that never dissipates. It might finally dissipate over decades and decades and decades, but I'm of the opinion that many places and families as well are haunted. Today, I want to talk about a case that has just now burst onto the scene nationally. And it's a case that originated back in 1964. It involves a 12-year-old little girl named Mary Simpson. And the story I'm going to lay on you today, you would think that it would happen in modern times because of the violence that was exacted on this poor little girl. I'm Joseph Scott Morgan, and this is Body Bags. Brother Dave, wow, we're back at it with another cold case that is no longer cold.
Wow.
I got to tell you, can I tell you something real quick?
No, you can't.
I try to find, I truly do. I've purposed myself in my life at this stage to try to find joy in every endeavor I do, as dark as it might be. And I've been, saying prayers about this, meditated on it, thought about it. And what should I do? Do I want to sit around and wring my hands and, sackcloth and ashes and all of that? To demonstrate that, and I think it's working for me, when I came across this case, Dave, I actually felt like I was opening up a Christmas gift. And the reason is that for so long, we've known who Mary Teresa Simpson is, but we've never known who the perpetrator is. And finally, even though her homicide took place in 1964, they've identified a suspect in this case. And that's what I mean by a gift. And here's kind of the hook for this whole thing, because it's going to require all of our friends out there to tune in, because they have yet to release the name of the perpetrator. But isn't there a specific date associated with this, Dave, where they're going to step up to a bank of microphones, I would assume in Elmira, New York, and they are going to say who this person is. I got to tell you, I can't wait. I can't wait to hear who this is, what the history was. Did they ever have an opportunity to catch this individual? So I don't know.
They didn't. February 10th is when they're going to announce.
February 10th. Okay, yeah. Gotcha.
What has happened is whenever somebody dies, they stop aging, obviously. Right. And when a child dies, they stay that age. They stay 12 years old. Yeah. And whereas all of her friends went, think about it, 12 is what, 6th, 7th grade, somewhere in there. Yeah. 1964. So that puts her born in 1952, which means Woodstock era. Okay, that's the age we're dealing with here at 12 years old. But she died in 1964. She was actually walking home, and this is the interesting part of how we look at time. In 1964, a 12-year-old little girl walking by herself after visiting with relatives in Elmira is walking home when she vanishes. Now, I don't know the distance that she was walking, but it wouldn't be uncommon. When I was a child growing up, we would walk distances without our parents. So that's what was going on. She was visiting relatives on her way home, never makes it home. So dad reports her missing that night right away. Hey, man, my daughter is missing. All hands on deck. And they did. The community came out on March 15th, 1964. The community of Elmira, they got after it. They were walking everywhere. They were searching elbow to elbow, looking for this little 12-year-old girl. It was 4 days later that her body was discovered. On March 19th, 1964, Mary's body is discovered in a wooded area near it by a man who was hiking with his sons. Now, when somebody says they were hiking, I think of hiking in rugged terrain. I'm not really sure that's what we're dealing with here, but I'm not that familiar with Elmira. And back in 1964, I don't know what it would have looked like. Right. Yeah. So. And, Elmira, my association with Elmira, we're just, now coming off of Christmas season. And of course, I absolutely love watching It's a Wonderful Life. And there's a reference that's made to Elmira. And of course, the movie is actually set, Pottersville is actually in New York State. Bedford Falls, Joe.
I'm sorry, Falls. Pottersville. See what I did there? Wow. The alternate. Bedford Falls. The bank examiner comes in, remember? And Harry has just won the Medal of Honor. Yeah. And he says, I want to get done with this. I want to visit my family in Elmira. Right. Like that. And, and of course the walls start caving in on George Bailey and everybody else in that environment because Uncle Billy's lost some money. It's on the border Elmira is, and I'm sure this is a lovely area. Matter of fact, it's an area I've always wanted to visit. If you go due north of Elmira, you're going to run into what's referred to as the Finger Lake District in New York. I've always wanted to see that area. I've always heard how beautiful it is. So this is nowhere near the city. It's on New York State's southern border, right adjacent to the Pennsylvania line in that area. So it's kind of, I'm not going to say necessarily rugged, but it's kind of hilly. Yeah. There's a river that runs through there. I think it's called, and forgive me locals if I mispronounce it, but the Chemung or the Chemung River, and there's kind of a state park area that's associated with this. The river's running through this area, and I can only imagine, Dave, that it's not like a place, you're not out in the wilderness like you are in out west somewhere, but it's kind of isolated still to this day. There's not like a lot of little towns around this area. Okay. Ground's kind of hilly. It would make a perfect location, not only for a dad to go out and hike with his kids, but to hide a body, Dave.
Yeah, and that's what was going on here, which is really sad, Joe, because this man is walking with his sons, and they come across. And by the way, when I was going over this story, my first thought was, she's missing. Who was the finder? My first thought was, Joseph Scott Morgan has trained me to think,
oh my Lord,
the finder is the first guy I've got to eliminate. So the finder, I don't know how old his sons were, but 12-year-old Mary Teresa Simpson. Her remains were found partially concealed under debris and large stones, and investigators determined she had been sexually assaulted and strangled, and her mouth had been stuffed with twigs and dirt. What is that significant of, Joe? The twigs and dirt in the mouth?
Well, it can be kind of a two-pronged assessment here, I think. First off, you want to shut her up. All right. I hate to be that blunt, but that's what is going on here. It also gives you an idea. I'd already made mention that the area where she was found is kind of isolated, right, Dave? Mm-hmm. And so you're thinking probably evergreen trees, maybe some hardwoods and that stuff. You're on a forest floor. The stuff is readily accessible. So if you're doing a sexual assault, you grab whatever is within arm's reach, and you can imagine she's terrified. She's screaming, carrying on, and you just want to quiet her down. So you stuff, and I think it was twigs, dirt, anything that someone could get their hands on that was in the immediate vicinity. And you're jamming this into her mouth just to get her to be quiet. Of course, one of the things that happens with this as well, it's not necessarily like putting a gag in somebody's mouth where the gag is one solid piece, okay? I've seen cases, Dave, where you get like this particulate things like dirt, leaves, grass, and individually it'll go into the airway. So because, just think about it. And anybody out here, just kind of think about, have you ever been in a situation where you're hyperventilating and you're scared? Well, you're just trying to get oxygen. How much more so if you've got some monster with their hands wrapped around your throat?
Wow.
And in Mary Teresa's circumstance, it's isolated. It's I think that it's probably a location. It's probably a location that was selected because you have to know that it's there. You're talking about an individual that probably might be a local, but you're also talking about the second prong of what I was going to mention. It's one thing if you put a gag in someone's mouth. It's totally different when you try to defile them and objectify them by cramming dirt into their mouth, their nose, and potentially down their throat.
Are you a fraud-paying American? It's a fact that 1 in 4 honest, hard-working, tax-paying Americans has been a victim of identity theft. With LifeLock Identity Theft Protection, though, if your identity is stolen, they fix it, guaranteed, and get you your money back. Last year, the IRS flagged over $16 billion in refunds for identity fraud. That's billions of dollars that could come from your salary, overtime, or second job. But this year, you don't need to stay a victim. LifeLock monitors millions of data points per second for your personal information and alerts you to threats you could easily miss on your own. And if your information does fall into the wrong hands, only LifeLock has U.S.-based restoration specialists who are backed by the $1 Million Protection Package. Because this tax season, fraud-paying American is something no American should have to claim. Visit LifeLock.com/iHeart and save up to 40% your first year. That's 40% off at LifeLock.com/iHeart. Terms apply.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
Hi, I'm Cindy Crawford, and I'm the founder of Meaningful Beauty. Well, I don't know about you, but I never liked being told, oh, wow, you look so good for your age. Why even bother saying that? Why don't you just say you look great at any age, every age? That's what Meaningful Beauty is all about. We create products that make you feel confident in your skin at the age you are now.
Meaningful Beauty. Beautiful skin at every age. Learn more at meaningfulbeauty.com.
You ever wonder how far an EV can take you on one charge? Well, most people drive about 40 miles a day, which means you can do all daily stuff no problem. Go to work, grab the kids at school, get the groceries, and still have enough charge to visit your in-laws in the next county. But they don't need to know that. And the best part, you won't have to buy gas at all. The way forward is electric. Explore EVs that fit your life at electricforall.org.
Dave, I got to tell you, I take exception to people that say, well, the world is just as evil as it has always been. And I know that we've gone through that it'll rise and it'll fall and this sort of thing. But Dave, knowing what I know of my family and also investigators that I have known over the years that were working back during the time when Mary Teresa's case would have taken place, this is not the kind of case that they would have commonly seen. We do see things like this. In the modern context. And no, it has, I don't think that it necessarily has to do with we're exposed to more. I think that there is a growing shadow of evil many times because of stuff that Brother Dave and I cover. Many times we can't take the measure of it. We just can't. But I got to tell you, Mary Teresa's case, to me, given the level of violence that's involved here, is almost a foreshadowing of what we would be looking at, 50 years later down the road. And you're right. I look at this image. She reminds me of my cousin back in the 60s. That was a couple of years older than me. And she's got a sweet little face, and she's wearing these kind of horn-rimmed glasses. And you can look at her and tell that she's 12 years old or approximating that. And Dave, she's frozen in time at that moment in time. And you would hope, I would imagine, that this case was going to move forward. But brother, it just came to hard stop, man.
I think that's part of it, Joe. When we look at these, you just kind of go, how is it possible in a small area, small town, Elmira, New York, how is it possible that a child can go missing and die and be killed like this, and nobody knows? Nobody can figure out what happened. I mean, they had to have had some ideas of the local crazies. Every community has local crazies. A small church of 100 people has a crazy person or two in there,
Oh, yeah.
And
right.
I mean that in the funnest way I can when I say that. I'm just saying there is no place hidden where there's just a great group of people who don't have anything going on.
Oh, yeah,
and
you're right.
People talk. I don't understand how something like this can go unsolved, but we've got a million of them. So think about this for just a minute. I'm pulling up the maps, trying to get an idea of what it was like in 1964. And I'm going to be honest with you, Joe, looking at pictures now of the area where Mary Simpson's body was found.
Yeah.
It's still wooded area.
Yeah.
It's not built up.
No.
And looking at it, it was only a couple of miles from where she lived.
Yeah.
Her body was found a couple of miles from where she was headed. And, you said early. And it could have been a different story. I mean, at this point in time, you mentioned knowing the area.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at where her body was found and where she was walking. And you're right. Somebody had to know where they were when this happened, Joe. But how is it possible that they couldn't figure out in 1964 a 12-year-old walking home and nobody saw anything? They didn't get not one suspect, Joe.
Well, that's one of the reasons I'm wondering, Dave. And there's a couple of ways you can go with this investigatively. Let's take the first one. The first one to me is, was there anybody in her little circle back then, 12-year-old, right,
mm-hmm.
that would have known about her first off? Okay. Now, there might be 12-year-olds that live in my neighborhood around here. I don't have a number on that. I don't know if they exist. I have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
However, if I were the bus driver, okay, if I were the teacher, if I were the minister, I'm going to know these people and all the peripheral people that they're associated with. You kind of think about like a Venn diagram, that kind of extends out. You're going to have those intimates or kind of peripherally intimate, I think. And you've got to look at immediate family regarding this as well. And they're going to have to know something about her comings and goings, right? When is she going to be on the street? When is she going to be most available, most vulnerable? These sorts of things. So, and Dave, this is not like it was. It's not like it was summertime up there. Okay.
Right.
You get up into that area of the country at the time of year that this occurred. And by the way, it was March 14th, 1964. You think about that and you think, well, it's going to be cold outside. There's not going to be a lot of people out and about. Now, I will tell you this, the 15th back on March 1964 fell on a Sunday. So you're going to have probably even fewer people out on the street. Back then, a goodly portion of the population went to church. You stayed at home in the evening. Some people would have evening services on Sunday nights. Most folks didn't go out to eat. And so it would be kind of vacant at that point in time. Who would know about her comings and goings at that period of time. That's one group of people that would be in her intimate circle. Then you got somebody else that's out there that is just like a predator, that is flying under the radar, that is on the hunt for someone like Mary Teresa, that is looking for a subject that fits within the parameters. Now, I have to think, Dave, and I don't know that we've ever necessarily talked about this. I was speaking with a child sex abuse investigator, and this is something I never really thought of. Within the subcategories, and there are, of child sex abuse offenders, those individuals, according to this detective I was talking to, bracket ages. So you'll have a subject that is out there that is interested in a bracket of 11, 12, and 13. Okay? They don't have an interest in anybody younger than that many times. And you can bracket that down, and it gets more and more horrible as you go, down to very, very young. And these people generally target, those individuals that they can visualize, that they see on a regular basis. That's what, kind of lights that evil fire that burns in them. So I found that quite compelling, tell the truth. And, just thinking about Mary Teresa here, who is it that would have it in for a 12-year-old girl like this and to violate her in such a violent way, man?
At 6:30 in the evening on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And she's walking. She's near home. And that's where again, this is probably, I'm going to guess, an opportunity. Somebody sees a child walking alone and snatches them. That's all I can really think of. And the reason I say that, Joe, is not because of the moment, but what happened after. The Elmira Police Department did not let go of this, Joe. Not only were searches beginning immediately when Mary did not make it home, and I don't know what time they actually began searching, but think about it. At 6:30 is when she's last seen, known to be on the way home at that point. She's probably a mile away from her house when she's last seen at 6:30. When she's not home by 7, I'm guessing they're already out. Yeah, let's go see, but let's trace back where she was coming from.
Yeah.
And by 7:30, where is she? By 8, get the neighborhood out. By 10:30, they've reported her to the police. We've got a missing girl. And that's when the entire search begins, and it stays that way until her body was found, not by searchers, but by a man hiking with his sons.
I'm glad you brought this up, because I'm thinking about how many of these cases have you and I covered involving young kids where, first off, the alarm doesn't go up for a protracted period of time. And many times the parents are not alerting anybody. They're like, we're going to solve this on our own, or they're so disengaged from their kids. Dave, this kind of gives you an indication, because the alarm went up so quick, that you've got a family that's engaged with this child. Mm-hmm. All right. There's no distractions in 1964, really. Okay. Right. Not like there are today. And so they're right on it. It's kind of fascinating that that it actually took them that period of time to do it, to discover her. But that goes back to what you had said earlier. You got a man and his 2 sons that are hiking. It's not like she's laying it, inside of a culvert, discarded on the side of the road. She's in an isolated area. Again, that goes back to the person that has to be familiar with this particular area. They know what they're about. First off, that involves the typology here. We're talking about Mary Teresa. And then secondly, they know where they're going to that location. Now, here's something that I'm curious about, and we don't know the information on this. I'm wondering what kind of access road was there leading to where her body was. Was she conveyed there in a motor vehicle? I have to assume that she was, because this is some distance away from her home. It's in an isolated space. Somebody is not going to pick her up, throw her over their shoulder, and march all the way out in the wilderness with her. So if that's the case, did this person pull over on the side of the road? Was there an established hiking trail that everybody was aware of? Had she ever been out to the hiking trail before? Because I think that would have been one of the initial questions. If she was familiar with this area where this man and his kids were, did she just decide to go on a little nature walk on her own? But of course, we know what happened because
6:30 at night.
Yeah. In
March.
In March, wintertime, we haven't hit spring.
Right.
Not by a damn sight at this point. And so you're approaching it, but I don't know. Right now we're in the middle of winter. I don't know. The sun's setting around here about what time? 5. A
little after 5 now. Yeah.
Yeah. A little after 5 now. You move out to March and still it's going to get dark pretty early. And I can imagine out here, Dave, there's no kind of artificial light out here. You're not going to be able to visualize anything. So I think the subject would have had to have known where they were going. They would have had to have been purposed, and they would have had to have been assured that they would not have been interrupted in this environment. I just wonder if that point of origin where they walked back into the woods with Mary Teresa, was there any evidence of footprints leading to that area? Was there any evidence that somebody had parked on the shoulder of the road to access? Was there actually a parking lot to give you access to a trailhead that goes back there? I don't know. Maybe that's been lost in the mist of time. But I can tell you this, because the Elmira Police Department didn't quit with this case, we now have answers.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
Now I'd like to introduce you to Meaningful Beauty, the famed skincare brand created by iconic supermodel Cindy Crawford. It's her secret to absolutely gorgeous skin. Meaningful Beauty makes powerful and effective skincare simple, and it's loved by millions of women. It's formulated for all ages and all skin tones and types, and it's designed to work as a complete skincare system, leaving your skin feeling soft, smooth, and nourished. I recommend starting with Cindy's full regimen, which contains all 5 of her best-selling products, including the amazing youth-activating Melon Serum. This next generation serum has the power of melon leaf stem cell technology. It's melon leaf stem cells encapsulated for freshness and released onto the skin to support a visible reduction in the appearance of wrinkles. With thousands of glowing 5-star reviews, why not give it a try? Subscribe today and you can get the amazing Meaningful Beauty system for just $49.95. That includes our introductory 5-piece system, free gifts, free shipping, and a 60-day money-back guarantee. All of that available at meaningfulbeauty.com.
You ever wonder how far an EV can take you on one charge? Well, most people drive about 40 miles a day, which means you can do all daily stuff no problem. Go to work, grab the kids at school, get the groceries, and still have enough charge to visit your in-laws in the next county. But they don't need to know that. And the best part, you won't have to buy gas at all. The way forward is electric. Explore EVs that fit your life at electricforall.org.
Every year, people make the same fitness goal, train harder. But most fail because recovery gets ignored, especially connective tissue that muscles depend on to grow. Frog Fuel was developed by Navy SEALs and perfected by a Stanford-trained scientist, delivering 15 grams of nanohydrolyzed collagen protein that digests in just 15 minutes. It's science-backed and ready to drink. No mixing, no sugar, no junk. This year, don't just train harder, recover smarter. Go to frogfuel.com. That's frogfuel.com. Stay unbreakable.
I think it was back in, 2000, Dave, that the New York State Police were urged by the authorities that they had a cold case in Elmira that went back to 1964. Many times there's events like this that you kind of want to be a fly on the wall where you just want to see the cold case squad with either the state or the science, the technicians with the state lab. You want to see the expression on their face and say, yeah, we've got a blouse here from 1964. We want you to test it. and just to see, kind of see their reaction. Right. But Dave, this was back in 2000, and they turned Mary Teresa's blouse over to the New York State Police, and they were urged to test it. And unfortunately, they came up with absolutely nothing, didn't they?
Well, yeah, nothing that actually led to the resolution. But what it did was Elmira, being a small community, but fairly famous. You mentioned it's mentioned in It's a Wonderful Life. So at least
greatest
once
Christmas
a year,
movie of all time. Yeah,
once a year, people hear the word Elmira. Yeah. But anyway, the story didn't go away, and even though the testing in 2000 didn't land them with a suspect that they could, lock up or anything else, it proved something to the community. They were still trying. They were still trying to solve this crime, this murder. At that point, it was 36 years old. And I looked through the news on a couple other things, Joe. And, in 2019, the local television station did a report. And this is the opening paragraph. It says, the year was 1964. Lyndon Johnson was president. The nation was in the midst of a long and drawn-out costly war in Vietnam, and an English rock band known as the Beatles arrived in the U.S. for the first time. That was what we're talking about in March of 1964. I Want to Hold Your Hand, and She Loves You. Well, it says here yet a cold Sunday of March of that year in the city of Elmira, Mary Teresa Simpson, a vibrant and shy 12-year-old little girl, disappeared without a trace. Her older sister, Linda Galpin, is quoted in this article from 2019. She says, I just remember a little bit. I wasn't in Elmira when it happened. I heard she came up missing a week before her birthday. Oh. She goes missing a week before she turns 13, Joe. So in 2000, they send off this blouse.
Right.
And while the state is able to get DNA off of it and develop something, nothing comes of it really. And it kind of languishes until, and this is something that I'm so glad you have talked about multiple times in multiple arenas. For those of you who follow true crime and you wish you could be more involved, do you realize there's just a little bit of money that it takes to solve crimes now? Yep. Very little. But in this case, in 2022, the Season of Justice granted the Elmira Police Force with a grant so they could reopen this case. They got assistance from the FBI, and they began with the DNA found in 2000 by the state police. And we all know where that took them.
Oh,
they got this. They got the funding.
Yeah.
All you got to do is have about $7,500.
Right.
And you can make the phone call to Othram. That's what they need to get this all, And I still can't believe it's that low. I would have thought 75,000 would be your starting point, Joe. $7,500 is where it starts with Othram.
Well, David and Kristen Middleman, they do this by the skin of their teeth. They try to minimize cost, and I know what some of you guys are saying out there. Oh, $7,500. You must be rich. You're saying that's minimal. No, I tell you what. Do yourself a favor. If you get a chance, you get hospitalized, which I don't wish on anybody. Read your hospital bill.
Yeah.
Okay. If you want to talk about clinical medicine and testing and all that stuff, just take a peek at that. And there's no guarantees with cures, right? When you go through some kind of treatment, there's actually a resolution with Othram. Okay. There is a true resolution in this case. And one of the things they were faced with, Dave, and this does not surprise me because I've been involved in cold cases in the past. And when you go, and if people don't know what I'm talking about, Dave, I know you do, one of those, the legal boxes, you know what I'm talking about, that the files are in, they've got the removable lid. I've gone through so many of those over the years, and they're stacked back in a warehouse somewhere most of the time. I'm always amazed that rats hadn't gotten into all these things many times. I have seen evidence of that. But none of the stuff many times is organized. And so when you look at it, you have to think about putting this case together in its totality, because you can take this blouse, all right, and you can send it off. You can try to do a DNA extraction, but there's all sorts of other things. And Dave, you had sent me a list, and well done, man, because some of the things you have to think about are case organization. How's this thing organized?
Joe, they brought in a college. They got the Russell Sage College.
Yeah.
That's how they got the help. Think about it now.
Yep.
You've got a small police department with an unsolved murder that took place decades ago, and a lot of people want to help, and they got the help. Russell Sage College stepped up to help them. Here's some resources. Here's some people that can help you.
Yeah, and talk about foreshadowing. I'm going to make an announcement in a couple of weeks involving Jack State. That's all I'll say. And it goes to the heart of this, because when you have files like this that go back so very long, you don't know what's in there. And there's a way that these things have to be organized. Because, look, I don't know what else happened before 2000 with this case, Dave. This thing has probably passed through multiple generations of investigators' hands. And God bless them, I'm glad they looked at it. However, and I know what happens when files pass through the hands of other people. I'm going to pull this out, put it on my desk, and take a look at it later. And then I'm going to return the file. And all of a sudden, that item, which are hard copies, it's now gone. It's gone in time. They may have packed up when they left to be retired, and that document is gone. That might be a critical piece. So you have to assess not what is just there, but what is missing as well. It's almost like not only are you conducting a cold case investigation, you're having to investigate the case file that's within the police department to try to make sense of it. Who's pulled the evidence out in this case? Is there any physical evidence? I got to tell you, Dave, I got to tell you, I'm kind of surprised that they still had the blouse, that this thing has survived all these many years. Again, I make mention of the fact that we're talking, I said 62, but actually 61 years ago, I guess, when this thing was first handed off, or 60 years ago, it's first handed off to, where we get down to brass tacks and we start doing testing with our friends at Othram, Dave.
Well, you started off mentioning the list of things that had to be done with the case from the organization, but something that gets skipped over, we used to call it data entry. There used to be jobs for that.
Yeah.
Because when we were computerizing everything, you actually had jobs where people were hired to do data entry. Oftentimes you were retyping memos to create a digital form of it. And that's what happened here. They had to digitize all of the documents, Joe, just so that they could be then researched. You cannot use a computer for something if it's garbage in, garbage out. So they had to digitize the documents. They had to do new site surveys. They had to go out to the crime scene, to where her body was found. They had to go back to, where was she last seen?
Yep.
They did a review of other evidence, not just the blouse that they had left, but all of the other evidence that was collected. And as we mentioned, dirt, twigs, and other stuff was crammed in this child's mouth, Joe.
Yep.
There were 4 large stones covering her body. Now, I'm going to guess that there was a lot of evidence sitting there in that mess.
Yeah, there probably was. And if you walk into it blind, so let's say you're in some cavernous, what am I trying to say, evidence room or warehouse.
Yeah.
There's hundreds of other cases in there, stuff that's like fresh, that is about to go to trial. And here you've got the stuff sitting in the back area back there. And you're looking at this and you don't have an inventory list, for instance, or the file is all askew, and you're looking at it and you're thinking, oh, my Lord in heaven, what does this even mean? Why do I have a bunch of decayed vegetable matter here? I don't know. I don't know what that means. And I'd like to address something right here real quick, because you really kind of breathed life into this for me from an education standpoint and how we reconstruct crime scenes. I am always beating the drum with my students about when they roll out onto a scene and you have a decedent that's laying there. We do a thing called triangulation of the remains, where you actually do a measurement to center mass of the chest. Okay. And it has to be pulled to a fixed object, and it can't be a light pole because light poles change. But if you have some kind of benchmark in the ground, some kind of surveyor stake or something like that that's there, you can use a building. But again, buildings can be torn down. We go to the top of the head, and then we go to the sole of one of the feet. Okay. And you pull this triangulation of the body. Now, hopefully, they have crime scene images, which they would have back then. You want to get the orientation of the body. Was she in a prone position? Was she in supine? Was she recumbent? And you can actually lay down those measurements right there, Dave, and get an idea, so that if you took a mannequin back out there, you could position the body in the original position that she would have been in, or approximate it. And that way people can visualize this. And this is all these years later. That's why it's so important that, when you're a crime scene investigator, that what you do out there, you're very exacting in your measurements and the stuff, because look, you might be dead and gone before somebody puts their hands on this file. And I can, dollars to donuts, I bet, well, if they're not dead now, they're rapping on the door, the people that originally worked on this case, because they would be up in age. Your recall ain't too much. I mean, even at this stage in my life, my recall's not that much. But Dave, they were able to take a sample from Mary Teresa's clothing that she had left behind. I have to think that this is probably ejaculate that they've got. I guess there could be something else. I can only imagine that the ejaculate would be something that would be so robust that they could take a sample from. It would be multiple deposition, which means that even if this was, and I really wonder, and I know this is rather grotesque, but I'm wondering to the extent of how much she was sexually assaulted, in the sense of, was it like a penetrative rape, or did he further humiliate her by terrorizing her and ejaculating on her as she watched, and then choked her out? A lot of that stuff is lost in time. And I don't even know that you would be able to kind of size that up, even in the modern context, but that's the kind of thing that you have to look for. And maybe they did a rape kit back then. Maybe they've got the swabs from that. I have no idea at this point, but I know this. In Woodlands, Texas, Othram is headquartered there. And because of their efforts of Othram, they've been able to shed light on a case, and not just shed light, but right now, somewhere out there are a group of investigators that have probably, I don't know, in their own little way, they've been celebrating, because on February the 10th of 2026, they're going to make an announcement. They're going to make an announcement that points the finger directly at the person that violated and murdered this child. And it's all because of the efforts of Othram, and all because of the efforts that this law enforcement agency didn't quit. If you want to participate in any way in solving a case, maybe a case very similar to Mary Teresa, I urge you to visit DNA Solves. That's DNAsolves.com. And there you can find a list of current cold cases that they are trying to start this process on. Wouldn't it be wonderful to actually participate in something like this? And I would like to trumpet the intentions of Othram, and specifically David, who I've had several conversations with. His goal is to clear out that damn NamUs list, all of these unidentified bodies. Isn't that a noble goal? Isn't that something we can get behind? I hope that you'll consider it. And then they're not asking for thousands and thousands of dollars, whatever you can, I don't know, as they say in church, where you can put in the plate, and let them do with it what they do best, and that is solve cases. Let's see what happens with Mary Teresa and who this monster was. I'm Joseph Scott Morgan, and this is Body Bags.
At CVS, it matters that we're not just in your community, but that we're part of it. It matters that we're here for you when you need us, day or night. And we want everyone to feel welcomed and rewarded. It matters that CVS is here to fill your prescriptions and here to fill your craving for a tasty and, healthy snack. At CVS, we're proud to serve your community because we believe where you get your medicine matters. So visit us at cvs.com or just come by our store. We can't wait to meet you. Store hours vary by location.
You ever wonder how far an EV can take you on one charge? Well, most people drive about 40 miles a day, which means you can do all daily stuff no problem. Go to work, grab the kids at school, get the groceries, and still have enough charge to visit your in-laws in the next county. But they don't need to know that. And the best part, you won't have to buy gas at all. The way forward is electric. Explore EVs that fit your life at electricforall.org.
Every year, people make the same fitness goal, train harder. But most fail because recovery gets ignored, especially connective tissue that muscles depend on to grow. Frog Fuel was developed by Navy SEALs and perfected by a Stanford-trained scientist, delivering 15 grams of nanohydrolyzed collagen protein that digests in just 15 minutes. It's science-backed and ready to drink. No mixing, no sugar, no junk. This year, don't just train harder, recover smarter. Go to frogfuel.com. That's frogfuel.com. Stay unbreakable.
With Venmo Stash, a taco in one hand and ordering a ride in the other means you're stacking cash back. Nice. Get up to 5% cash back with Venmo Stash on your favorite brands when you pay with your Venmo debit card. From takeout to rideshares, entertainment and more, pick a bundle with your go-tos and start earning cash back at those brands. Earn more cash when you do more with Stash. Venmo Stash terms and exclusions apply. Max $100 cash back per month. See terms at venmo.me/stash terms.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.